say that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so thanks for being here today. Get set for 90 minutes of value-packed action. Barb is such an amazing presenter. I'm really pleased I'm getting the opportunity to introduce her. She is known as a time tamer, and some of you may already be familiar with her very engaging interactive trainings on time management. This one is particularly interesting. She's able to take sensitive topics and make them very practical and very useful. So, sensitive topics about dealing with difficult personalities. She has a gift in how she presents the content, and she is incredibly engaging. So, for those of you who don't already know, she was nominated, she was a finalist for the 2025 AgriFutures Rural Women's Award for her excellence in delivering her leadership programs. I'm very proud that she is a coworker, a peer of mine, and I learn so much from her every time I attend one of her sessions. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Barbara.
Thank you, Cecilia, and thanks for being here. And Cecilia will also drop in, can I just say, some amazing wisdom as we go through this. And as I was saying before, just a reminder, if you can share your experiences, I'm going to ask you questions, so it'd be great if you can give me your thoughts and feedback and any knowledge you have around the topic. You can do that by opening your mic or by popping something in the chat. I don't mind. I've got the chat window open and Cecilia's watching it with me as well. This is very much this is a masterclass. So this is not a sales pitch. This is very much about applied knowledge. We're really passionate. Cecilia and I are really passionate about sharing wisdom and supporting people to apply this knowledge in the workplace. And a lot of what I'm sharing with you comes from, you can see my slides, everyone, okay? You can see the slides, cool. This information that I'm sharing with you is pretty popular. This topic is often really popular, and I get asked to speak on this through my experience of mediation. I am an accredited workplace mediator, and Kay, I know you're in Alice Springs. You would be surprised how much work I get in Alice Springs. Alice Springs, for anyone that doesn't know, is a small town in the middle of Australia that has a population of 25,000 people. Yet I am still busy with workplace mediations. And what we know through research and through all the data that's coming around the world is people are ending up more and more in conflict. And so what we're seeing through that research, and love to see any research that you all might have, we look at Gallup and Korn Ferry and other leaders in this field, Deloitte. We're seeing that people are losing the capacity to manage relationships, that human side of work. That's what Cecilia and I love doing. We have a bit of a laugh and say that we're Gen Xers, and because of that, we came into the workforce before there was AI and email and all of those things. So we had to get really good at people skills. Yet it's something that's starting to get dropped off as we move into all of these digital tools and resources. And people are also not being equipped with leadership and management skills. What we've seen in terms of people's capacity to be resilient and adaptive and innovative in the workplace, we will always, in our presentations, will quite often start with this information, because the reality is that there's a few components that all feed into each other for us to feel good at work, to feel okay coming into the workplace and feel inspired and motivated to get up and go to work. And we used to have some pretty boring titles for all of these things like communication, leadership, time management. This is Cecilia and my language that we use to talk about the kind of things that impact upon people's capacity to work well in the workplace. So you can see that there's a time management. That's the thing that I'm really passionate about. It's where I started my business, is supporting people to be productive and prioritize and not procrastinate. But it's also the other things that impact upon us. Being able to work together really well, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about today. Mission control is for you to be able to lead whether it's leading yourself, leading others, leading your community, leading your family, feeling good at work, as I talked about before, having the capacity to communicate. I'm going to touch on that as well. Getting smart about how you talk with others. So, all of those things can impact upon your capacity to work well. And if they falter, what we see is these common traits. We see those three at the top are the most common. That's the most common language that people come to us with. But what we also find is that people feel they can't be authentic, which is what we're going to talk a little bit about today. And when you can't be authentic, when you can't apply your knowledge and skills, you're being undermined by other people, for example, you can feel really negligent or you feel like you can't shine like you should. And that can be claustrophobic, that can mute your capacity to speak well, and it can be stressful, it can be demoralizing, all of those things. And people take away your credibility. We don't want that. We want you to be able to feel that you can move into a space of strength. So, going, we like to say, from stress to strength, from chaos to calm, from messy to magic. You can use those experiences that are challenging to empower you, to inform you, and to be more proactive in the workplace so that you can be strategic for your career, for your department, for your business. You feel motivated to come to work, and people then look to you as a person of influence, as a person of authority. You become that trailblazer. So, what I want you to do now is I want you to think about, we're talking about these difficult people, right? I think we've all had difficult people that we've had to deal with. It's a colleague, it's a boss, it's a client, it's a customer, it's a stakeholder. And I don't think we can ever avoid them. They always come back into our life. I've been in business for 10 years, and probably the only real difficult people I've had to deal with maybe is a difficult client. And they're rare because I'm getting pretty good at finding the right match. But, recently I was on a board with a contractor who was atrocious. I thought, wow, I thought I escaped having to be forced in situations with people. So I want you to write down, who do you know? Start to really think about, and it doesn't have to be somebody now. It can be somebody in your past. And if you've got a pen and paper, I just want you to write that name down. No one else can see it. No one else knows it, because I want you to start visualizing that person and some of the traits and the qualities that made them difficult, and to see if you can perhaps identify those personalities as we go through. I'm going to be focusing on, to start with, I'm really going to zero in on the bully, the narcissist, and the psychopath. And what are the differences? Maybe what that person that you've identified and written down fits within that criteria. But I'd love to hear from you without disclosing any confidentiality. If you want to write in the chat, that's okay. Or if you want to open your mic, if you could give just a couple of words to describe what made them difficult. What was it that made that person difficult for you? Was it dishonesty, condescending? What was it? One or two words, if anyone would like to share. Controlling and condescending. Yeah. Samara said that. Yeah. Not having trust. That's a really interesting one. Trust is there's a lot of research coming out at the moment, Kay, that shows that staff that are demotivated, a lot of organizations will do a lot of work to try and motivate people because they're disengaged, but it's actually they're disillusioned, that they've lost trust. And so leadership and organizations can do all of this work, team building and incentives and all of these things, but they've actually lost trust. And that's where the focus needs to be. So it's a really interesting one. Micromanagement, Cecilia. Yeah, we're going to talk about micromanagers. Being irrational. Oh, that's an interesting one. Do you mean, Cecilia, that they're like flying off the handle, or it's unfounded emotional response?
Unpredictable, irrational. You never
Yeah.
know from one moment to another how they would react.
Oh, yeah, that's horrible. Condescending. Yeah, so we're getting some common language here, right? And what's really important, Michael said, condescending and arrogant on a power trip. Power trip is actually such an interesting word too, Michael. I actually did a mediation recently. It's not often, but sometimes they fail. Sometimes people come into mediation wanting something else than what mediation offers and can throw language around like you this is all about your ego. I'm not going to be a victim to your power trip. So yeah, it's a really interesting word that you've got there. Yeah. So, and the interesting thing, look how much condescending is coming up. That's really interesting. There's a bit of a theme there. Feeling disempowered, probably. I would also say to you what we know, what psychologists will also say is that when you can name the feeling that you experience or whatever it is that you're feeling from that person, that you will be more resilient. So it's really good to be able to name it. What is the behavior that you don't appreciate that you're experiencing? And once you can name it, then you start to be able to have something to work with. So if you can take anything away from today, it's getting very clear on what is the behavior that you dislike and then starting to unpack that. And there's a lot of what I do with clients is around, even if it's dealing with somebody that they're leading who may not necessarily be this aggressive kind of traits that we're going to talk about today, just understanding some of those frustrating behaviors can really help you work with them. Okay, so let's start unpacking it. I hope you've got a pen and paper handy. Um, and we're going to start to look at some of the traits of these different behavior types and different personalities. I will be emailing out a cheat sheet afterwards that goes into a lot more detail, or gives you some of the information that I'm sharing rather than giving you the slides. Uh, but I will ask you to write some things down because as you write things down, it hardwires in your brain and it helps you to be more consciously aware of this in your environment. So I do encourage you to write down notes as we're going through this. So let's start with the workplace bully. Often people think that this is the biggest one and the worst one of all. I would actually say that you can work with a bully. There's some actually, you're very clear about where this person is positioned. So it gives you more capacity to be able to work with a bully. And we now know that certainly in Australia and I know in other countries, bullying and harassment is illegal. So we want to be able to clearly identify what constitutes that kind of behaviour. Mostly what we will see in Australia under legislation, it is about repeat behaviour. The thing about a bully is that you want to make requests for them to change or stop. Sometimes they just don't know what it is that they're doing. And their motivation is really comes from an insecurity, probably. They're motivated by power and control over others, probably because they're feeling out of control. They fear that lack of control. It's quite possible that they're not confident in their own abilities, so they're trying to enforce that. They're not able to, they are lacking some communication skills and emotional intelligence, so they don't know how to negotiate, they don't know how to assert themselves, and it's pretty clear their behavior. So we want to look for the repeat behavior. They're typically going to use things like intimidation. They're just going to use really quick and easy methods to get what they want. And intimidation is really easy. If you think about your siblings, your friends, anybody that's overpowered you at any point, they'll just quickly intimidate you to get that control back. Humiliation, manipulation, And some of the tactics that they will use is some hurtful words, because that can get to you really quickly, spreading rumors, micromanaging. We're going to talk about micromanaging a bit later. And they will exclude people because it's just easier. They're a bit lazy, I guess, in terms of their own professional development. And they're undermining your work. You're going to see them, they're reactive. So that was something that Cecilia talked about, is that someone being unpredictable and irrational and not understanding where some of this stuff is coming from. So poor things, I kind of feel sorry for the bully. They've got lots of vulnerabilities, right? So, what do we want to do to be able to handle a bully? Here's some really important things that you can do. Boundaries. They're overstepping a line, and this is what I talk about in mediation, is where did somebody cross the line? What will you tolerate, but what will you not tolerate? What is okay? What is not okay? What can you work with? What can't you work with? So, how can you support this bully, as annoying and frustrating and offensive as they are? How can you support them to improve their professional capacity and emotional intelligence? What's a request that you can make in terms of how you would like them to communicate with you? You need to be direct, you need to be assertive, but you don't want to respond back with aggression, because we start to throw verbal punches then. And the good thing about bullies is they will back off when they realize that they've overstepped a mark, when they realize that you're not going to tolerate their tantrum or their behavior or their name calling. It's really important, particularly under the legislation in Australia, and I'm sure in other countries as well, is you want to document everything. It's not always, sometimes it's a small thing that you can dismiss, but if it's lots of small things and it's repetitive, that can constitute bullying or harassment. So it's really important. I talk to people about it being an insurance policy. HR people will talk to you about how important it is to document things and keep records. Even if you're exhausted and you're overloaded, and that's part of the experience, you just want a little document where you're adding to things quite regularly. It's important that you also, if you can, which is really hard because it's very personal, is to detach from the emotion and observe just the facts of the work and the data and the information, rather than looking at the person and the people. Cecilia and I have talked about this. We go into a lot of depth in our podcasts. So if you ever want to explore some of these topics, we often talk about these kind of things and our experiences and different points of view. And we had a laugh one time in a podcast. We're going, it's pretty hard. Someone's just thrown a verbal punch at you. And of course, you want to respond back, but the best thing you can do is try to detach emotionally from that. If you can involve the resources that you have around you, such as policies, procedures, HR, management, it's important that you pull those resources in, because sometimes we can go, oh, it's just me, I'm being sensitive. But it's great to get a different perspective. And sometimes people engage mediators or coaches like me outside of the organization to also give a different perspective. Cecilia as well. So you want to escalate things if it becomes repetitive, but you do need to, if you can, address it directly with the bully. And so bringing in people that you can trust also helps you to be resilient. So really, if we narrow it down, the best strategy with a bully is to stand your ground. Stand your ground without aggression, setting those boundaries, because a bully will pick off easy targets, the people that they can manipulate because they're lazy, I guess. So I was just looking at in the chat, Samara, you said you've got some of these challenges at the moment. Sorry, yeah, like Cecilia said, sorry to hear that. Yeah, so they can be impulsive and emotional, the bullies, but will back off if you confront them. All right, we're going to look at the narcissist now. This is a term that loves to get be bandied around and thrown around in social media. So let's have a look at what that looks like. I would say the narcissist is like they've got something missing in their DNA. They actually don't have capacity or behavioral competency around emotional intelligence. They don't understand it and they don't have empathetic leadership capabilities. So this is what will motivate a narcissist. They feed off personal admiration, validation, and superiority. They are not aware that they're even doing that themselves. It's just like this missing link, right? And so as a result, they can seem manipulative, arrogant, self-absorbed, and don't totally have no radar, right, in terms of people's feelings. So they a bit can be take credit for other people's work, blame other people. It's always somebody else's fault. It's never them because they're amazing and they want to be told that they're amazing. It's always somebody else that's causing the problem, and they will gaslight. Does anyone know? Does anyone want to have a go at explaining what gaslighting is, to define gaslighting? Does anyone want to have a go what that means?
I guess I think of a gaslighter as someone who lights a fire or puts a bomb under something and then, boom, wants a response from that person.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Set the scene sort of thing, I guess. They light a fire and just watch the person
Watch the
react
person burn.
not well. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't heard that definition before, okay? I'm going to give you a different version of that, but I like that one.
Yeah.
Samara said she's moved to another room. It might be a good idea, actually. Um, a person that doesn't take accountability for their mistakes. Oh, yeah, that's a good definition. Yeah. Anyone else want to have another go?
I guess I just want to add to that because I think that in a team in work team environments, I think people need to realize it's okay to make mistakes,
Mm.
but to make a mistake and blame someone else and not taking responsibility for that, it's for me it's a gaslighting type of behavior.
Samara, I've never heard of it from a team context. I've only ever heard of it in the context of one-on-one kind of relationship. But that is a really good, interesting observation around gaslighting. I really like that. Where the term comes from, I'll give you a bit of a background because I think this is really interesting. Where the term actually started, and it's a very contemporary idea. There was a movie back in I think it was around the 40s or the 50s. I'm going to say the 50s, this movie that came out called Gaslight. The movie was set in the turn of the century, I think in America. And it was when big cities in like London and big cities in America used to have gas pipelines going into the houses to light the houses, and the lighting in the house was actually fueled by gas. And so, in that era, men could get rid of their wives by proving that they were mad and then institutionalizing them. Also, rather than killing them or getting a divorce, they could institutionalize them and then were allowed to remarry. So, the plot of this movie was this man that was trying to convince his wife that she was mad. He would play with the lights. He would dim them. He would make them flicker. And so she would point out that there was something wrong with the lights, and he'd say, "No, there's not. It's you. You're going mad, basically." So that was the plot of the movie. So the term gaslighting is exactly what Samara and Kay you kind of touching upon is ignoring any responsibility in the feelings in the conversation, and putting all of the responsibility onto the other person. So, for example, and it can be quite sarcastic as well. So, gaslighting could be a classic one is, "You're not wearing that, are you?" When your partner says to you, when you're about to go out, "You're not wearing that, are you?" and you immediately go, what's wrong? Do I look fat in this? Is there something wrong? Do I look old fashioned? And so you become sensitive, and the other person goes, whoa, calm down. I was just asking, is that what you're wearing? Why are you being so sensitive and emotional? So taking no responsibility for the impact that the words or behavior or the comments have. So that's what a narcissist is very good at. It's not me, it's all you. It's nothing about me. So they're totally void of any responsibility of fault, but they're totally responsible for all the success. They just miss things. They don't realize what they're doing. So they can be really sensitive. How dare you criticize their amazing work? How dare you insinuate it was my fault for offending you? So narcissistic injury. Oh, they get really hurt, and they can be defensive and dismissive. They won't take ownership or responsibility for their behaviors. So that's a bit to work with. So what we want to do, here's what I want you to write down. And the key differences too with a narcissist is they're more self-serving. A bully will be willing to take a little bit of ownership and responsibility, whereas a narcissist, it's very difficult to educate them. They're a bit ignorant they're unconscious of their incompetence. They're unaware, so you've got to educate them a little bit. And they can also be very charming, which makes it difficult. So this is the strategies. If you're dealing with a narcissist, this is the things that you can do to be able to manage them. The first thing is not to take it personally. They just don't realize what they're doing. They just don't have it on their radar. Their need to belittle you or others is more about their own insecurities. They unconsciously do that to manage their own feelings. If you have to work with a narcissist, what do you call it? The things that you can put in your armory is to flatter them, right? Stroke their ego, because that's going to work in your favor if you want to win them over. So this will make you look good in your leadership. This is going to make you an even more amazing leader. Whatever it is that you can do to motivate them, you can use that to your advantage. You want to be able to avoid confrontation over small things because they're not going to own up to it. It's just one of those battles that's not worth fighting, and they're likely to retaliate. If the narcissist is somebody that you report to, or it's a stakeholder, or if it's a client, you want to keep communication very clear, very factual, and not let it creep or scope or become emotional. And they will always resort back to emotions to get what they want. So getting angry, like Cecilia said, or that irrational kind of behavior. They will resort to that because that's a fallback for them to get what they want. So you want to keep pulling back and making sure things are factual and non-emotional. And it's really important that you own your own story, because the gaslighting, for example, is they're going to twist it. They're going to change the narrative to suit the story they've got in their head about who they are, what they're good at, who was to blame. They're going to twist the story. So you want to make sure that your story is strong. You want to make sure that you can showcase the credit to your work without being over the top, because they'll take credit very, very quickly. Make sure you're keeping stakeholders very informed about your contributions. Sometimes it's just about stating the obvious, doing a summary report, a recap of what's done. Those kind of things can be really helpful. So you want to really avoid getting drawn into emotional games, stay neutral, and protect your professional reputation. I have seen this before I've coached somebody in a really difficult position. They're in a 2IC role with a business owner, and the business owner was a narcissist. And it was so hard. She'd got caught in the trap of becoming like the friend, like the mother to this boss. And as soon as the boss was so unpredictable emotionally and would burst into tears or be over affectionate or all of these things to manipulate this poor person. And so what she really needed to do from the very beginning is set very clear boundaries in the workplace and go, we're not friends. Don't overshare your love life and all of those things. I'm here to do work. And so that can be the trap where the narcissist is bringing you into their narrative and their personal life and their emotions. So you've got to really firm boundaries. So you can work with a narcissist. It does, like the bully, it does take a little bit of work, but just remember there's a flaw in their capabilities and their technical capabilities, whereas the bully's probably just a little bit lazy. Okay, so the psychopath, watch out. The reality is, research shows that there is a percentage of psychopaths in the workplace. They are smart, they know what they are doing, whereas this narcissist is just blindly ignorant. The psychopath is all about their own desires. What was that character's name in that movie, the 80s movie, Michael Douglas, where he said greed is good? Remember that? The stock market guy?
The character was Gordon Gekko.
That's the one, Mark. Well
The movie was
done.
Wall Street. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's a very famous scene, right? And it was he's probably a psychopath where he uses what he can to get what he needs, and anybody that's, that falls victim is just collateral damage, and all's fair in love and business kind of attitude, right? They can be very charming, very cunning in the way that they operate. So here's some interesting statistics as well. I'll share some interesting statistics in a moment, but their motivation, power, control, and sometimes they just get a buzz from being the winner, for knocking somebody out to get where they want. They do not have remorse. They're very calculated. While I say cold, that's at the core of who they are, but on the surface, they're very good actors and can be very, very charming. So deceptive, manipulative. So sometimes there's pleasure in causing disruption or harm. They will take pleasure in seeing things fall apart, or they will want to disrupt something just because they can and they have the power to do so. And yeah, the charm will be to gain trust. They do not have any empathy. They don't see the value of empathy. They probably see it as being a weak trait of leaders. They don't feel guilty. And they don't, where you can, I guess, win is that they don't have emotional depth. So that's one thing. If you're emotionally intelligent, you could have as a point of difference. But they can fake their emotions to manipulate others. They're a lot more strategic than a bully. And they have a big picture, a long-term game. You are a pawn in their big plan. So here's the statistics. Approximately 1% of the general population meets the clinical criteria for a psychopath. But this figure is higher in corporate settings. No surprises there. 3 to 4% of individuals in senior business roles may exhibit psychopathic traits. So it's not a huge number, but the reality is there is a percentage. A 2011 study focused on Australian white-collar managers, and it revealed that 5.76% could be classified as psychopathic, and 10.4% were identified as dysfunctional, with psychopathic characteristics. That was a real tongue twister, that was. There was a study done of 261 corporate professionals in the supply chain management industry. Now, why this industry, I have no idea, but they found in that industry that 21% of participants exhibited clinically significant levels of psychopathic traits. So if you don't want to work with a psychopath, maybe don't work in the supply train industry. I don't know what it is about that industry that that makes people more psychopathic. So they have no conscience, and they're going to be ruthless. So if you have this person in your sphere right now, or if they ever come into your world, these are some tips and tricks in terms of how to handle them. Stay under their radar. Don't get into their line of sight. Don't become a threat that they have to mitigate because they see you as pawns. And if you're not useful to them in any way, great. If they can't use you to get what they want, good. Just be a shadow. They will exploit weakness and emotions. So if you show any vulnerability, they're going to go for you. So they're very, very clever at twisting words. So you want to make sure you have totally backed up everything in writing. And keep things as formal as possible, even having a support person or a witness in conversations, because they are very, very clever. You don't want to be isolated with them. So you want to make sure that you have support networks, because if you are isolated, you become an easy target. So if they know you've got solid support networks around you, they won't go for you. Here's the thing, very difficult to survive a psychopath. So if you need to, exit. If you can, exit. If you're dealing with a full-blown workplace psychopath in a leadership role, leaving might actually be the best option available to you. But most importantly, if we summarize it, your best strategy is to be very neutral. Show no fear, you want to be neutral, unemotional as possible, because they will definitely use that against you. Play the long game. They will use other people against you because they're very clever at manipulating other people, twisting stories, creating falsehoods, and getting people to, telling a story to somebody else so that they dislike you. So you've got to be very, very careful. They will use other people against you. And they're going to engage in office politics, right? So hopefully you don't have that person in your working environment. Maybe you have had them in your working environment before. There's limited options that you can utilize, but you want to back everything in writing. So look, if this is a bit of a quick comparison about those particular behavioral styles and personalities, if we put it into a nice little spreadsheet, little columns. A goal of a bully is just to quickly dominate and quickly get things in control. A narcissist wants the applause and the glory. The psychopath, absolutely, I would say even greater than control and manipulation. It is about leverage. They really, really want to leverage off you. Tactics, a bully is just going to use quick things they can go to, name calling, public shaming, intimidation. But a narcissist is going to say, it's all you, not me. It's all you. Me, in terms of promoting all the good stuff, but you in terms of the bad stuff. Whereas a psychopath is going to be very manipulative, very cold, cruel, strategic. Emotional responses, a bully, they wear their heart on their sleeve a lot of the time. So that gives you something to work with. You can help them reframe things. You can help them see a different perspective, and they're likely to potentially be open to that. So narcissists, you've got a bit more work because they're going to be sensitive to any criticism, and they're going to be arrogant. They're a little bit more hard work, but there is opportunity to educate them. It's a psychopath. You may not always know where you're at with them. You're not going to get information that is authentic or genuine. And it's going to be very calculated. So you've got to be careful. In terms of remorse, yeah, a bully can be remorseful. They can apologize. They can recognize what part they've played in things going wrong and conflict being caused. Narcissist, you can cross your fingers and hope, but it's not often. And a psychopath has no remorse. So you're never going to be able to mediate. And if you do mediate, they'll say yes, they're going to do all of this, come to an agreement, but they won't fulfill it or they'll manipulate it. So you haven't got a hope. That's a psychopath. That's doom and gloom with the psychopath, isn't it? So I'm curious to know, given what I've explained to you about those different styles with the group here, I just want to do something in the chat. I want you to put in the chat, which ones have you experienced? A bully, a narcissist, a psychopath, or all of them? Or is it 1 and 2 or 1 and 3? Or I'd love to see in the chat what you've experienced. Casey, 1 and 3. So a bully and a psychopath. Oh, Cecilia, 1 and 2. Kay said a bully and a narcissist. Mark said definitely all of them in different workplaces. Dama said a bully and a psychopath. Wow. Wow, really interesting. Michael said I knew someone would say that they've seen all three in one person. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the point is to be able to, what I want you to take away from today is to be able to identify some of these traits and then if you can recall on some of the strategies that I'm sharing with you. What are some of 1 or 2 strategies that you can apply in order to work with the situation that you're in? I'm going to move now into, I haven't included this one. They sort of are on their own, the micromanager, a different kind of species. And a micromanager is a bit like the bully in the sense that for them, it is very much about control. And it's not necessarily that they don't trust you personally. It's about their own control and their insecurities. So they may not trust the team to do the work. They're really worried about how they're going to look. So they don't want to fail. They don't want to let someone down. They don't want to lose control. So they're the things that, again, it comes down to some of that insecurity stuff. They could be really feeling the pressure from leadership. They could be new in this role and a lot's weighing on what they're doing. So they want to make sure everybody is getting everything right because it could reflect poorly on them. It can also be that they are a perfectionist. They want everything to be beautiful and exquisite and fulfilling. And if it's somebody that's new into supervisory or leadership role, they've probably been really, really good at their job. They may not recognize that other people need to take time to build their skills and capabilities. So they want to step in and make it all perfect. So the things here are some tips for managing a micromanager. If you have to work with a micromanager, I want you to write some down that work with you. So I'm going to focus on 5 key things. The biggest thing for a micromanager is to go, it's okay. You can trust me with this. I've got it. So how you can do that in terms of building their trust is keep them updated before they ask. Because remember, they're panicking, they're worrying. Have you got it? Have you done this? Where are you at with this? When am I going to get that? So if you can tell them before they think of it, they know that you're like their second brain. They know that you've got it. So tell them before they ask. That's what the being proactive is about. You want to make sure that they can rely on you. So make sure that you are going to hit those deadlines, or let them know if you're not going to hit the deadlines. Yeah, Mark, managing up for the micromanager, totally managing up. It's about empowering them to be better managers, supporting them to improve their leadership capabilities. Because it doesn't, unlike the bully or the narcissist, it doesn't come from a place of not liking you. It's not personal. It's about them and their capabilities. And again, like Mark said, in terms of managing up, anticipate what they're going to be worried about. Anticipate what the sort of things that they tend to get worried about and concerned about, and address those before they bring them up. I had a coach that used to talk about the poo down the river before the canoe hits it. You just bring the issue up before your client or whoever is going to raise it. But instead of waiting for them to check in, you can send an email saying, here, just a quick update. The task is on track. I should have it done by Friday. Let me know if there's anything else you're worried about or you want me to do. That would be a great example of how you could do that. Get in before them. Okay, the next one is very clear expectations. A micromanager can sometimes flip and flop as they start to worry about where things are at. Kay said it's exhausting, and especially if they flip and flop all the time. So you want to get very clear, and this is where micromanagers sometimes come into mediation with me. So it's about some boundaries. It can be, what's your job, what's mine? What do you want me to focus on? What don't you want me to focus on? Because they chop and change in a panic. So what are the clear goals? What are the clear priorities? What comes first? What comes second? What does good work look like? What is a standard or a benchmark that we're reaching? What does success look like? And you want to agree at the very beginning, agree on the milestones or the check-in points. So having some clear points of check-in. So it could be, how about we catch up at the end of the day? Or how about we do a toolbox meeting at the beginning of each day? So that there's some structure around those check-in points. Otherwise, they're always over your shoulder. Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? So that'll stop the constant interruptions. And ask them, what do you want me to handle independently? What do we need to work together on? How do you want me to work autonomously? Because they're worried about you going off and doing something and them not being on top of it. Okay. Manage up with transparency, which is what Mark was talking about. So it's really important that you document things. If you're having little meetings, sometimes just an email afterwards saying, my understanding is you're going to do this, I'm going to do that. So also when I'm working with leaders, I'm often showing them tools or strategies to delegate effectively, to be able to hand over things, let it go, stop thinking about it, stop checking on it, but having those touch points where you can check in on the status rather than getting frustrated with people not doing things and then becoming a micromanager. So status reports are really important, and how you use those, whether it's a spreadsheet, a dashboard, a project management tool. And sometimes it can be helpful to frame things in a way that feels like it's their idea, because then they're feeling like they're in control. This is sometimes a way. So because control is what a micromanager is fearing that they're going to lose. So for example, I know you like to stay updated on progress, so I've created a tracker where you can see some updates. I know that you're really smart about this work, so I'm coming up with something that you like. So sometimes they can get bogged down in the detail. In terms of managing up, like Mark talked about, is demonstrate how good leadership is thinking about the finish line, not necessarily the journey. Because micromanagers overmanage things rather than trusting that people have different ways to get to the end line. to the finish line. So you want to support them to be strategic thinkers. What's Mark said, we need to defend any expectations and milestones set, as the micromanager may want to bring deadlines forward and not wait, which impacts your priorities and work plan timing. Such a good point, Mark. And that is why it's exhausting, right? They flip and flop. So that's why putting things in writing and formalizing it's going, let's be very clear about the priorities and the goals. What comes first, what comes second, what's the big picture? And that's why the strategic thinking is really helpful as well. Okay, forget about all the detail. What are we actually trying to achieve here? Okay, leave it with me. I've got some methods and you can check in with me on how I'm going along the way. And you also want to be able to highlight along the way about how you are kicking those small goals, how you are being efficient. And eventually those check-ins can pull back. Okay, and boundaries always comes back to boundaries, like what Mark was saying. Thought we said this was the deadline, now you've changed it. Thought this was the standard, now you've changed it. Thought this was the number. So it's really important that we are consistent with those boundaries. You will need to develop, if you're dealing with someone like that, is that enhanced emotional intelligence and language skills. So practicing assertive communication techniques that allows you to push back while still being professional and emotionally intelligent. So being very diplomatic, especially if they overstep at any of those boundaries that you've said. Yes, Cecilia said defend through documentation and regular communication. Good, really important point. And that, however, that regular communication needs to be not every half an hour. I was like, let's check in at the end of the day or the toolbox meeting. And data will help you justify that independence. Yes, summaries are great. And it's things like, I really appreciate your feedback and your guidance. I've got this covered. If anything comes up, I assure you I'm going to reach out for you. But everything is tracking along okay. Yeah, so they're the kind of things that you can say. So it's just some little nuances there, some tips that you can take away if you're dealing with a micromanager. Does anyone else have any other? Cecilia's had some great points. Mark's had some great points. Does anyone else have any thoughts, comments, strategies that have worked for them, or maybe some that have backfired in dealing with a micromanager? Have you ever been a micromanager? If you ask my family, they'd say I am.
I was just thinking that, Barbara, because I think I am. But the problem is, it did mention as well that we do have that pressure from leadership and targets, especially at an agency like ours, which is funded. So, then how do we balance that? Because it's obviously we want to trust our staff and we don't want to micromanage, but then when we can see that those targets are not being met, we can delay, of course, we keep delaying, so that's middle ground, that we have to come and not look after the staff, not putting that much pressure, but at the same time, I don't want to see as being micromanaging. It's really tough.
Yes, I totally understand, Samara. And I think my advice to you, and I'm curious to see what everybody else says and what Cecilia and Mark will say because they're experienced in these areas. My advice is to set some milestones or some benchmarks before the finish line so that you've got a check-in point, a little check-in spot. So, for example, with my team, there will be when drafts are due before something goes live, like if it's an email newsletter or something like that. So I get check-ins earlier until I know that they've got things managed and they know what they're doing, and then I can push those check-in marks back. So I don't know if that helps. Sometimes it is saying, and I know with my team that those deadlines become, oh, that's when I need to start. But it's like, no, that's actually when we have to deliver the report. Do you know what I mean? Or publish the blog or send out the email. So I say, no, the deadline is a couple of days before that. That's when we go live. This is when it needs to be. And also letting people know when they need to have started in project management. Sometimes that's the most important thing, is when you actually need to start the work, knowing how long it's going to take. What have we got in the comments here? Cecilia said, I don't know, you said speaking openly, how to establish trust. Mark has said, how can we develop their self-confidence to embrace uncertainty that comes with delegating to others and trusting that people will deliver? Yeah. And it is, Mark, about that uncertainty, isn't it? Where can you get clarity early? It's important to trust your staff in managerial roles. They're usually great at what they do. Everybody has a different style, Kay, right? So that's the tricky thing as well. And that's why you've got to be strategic, is to go, let's not think about the journey we take. What's the end goal and the standard of the goal that we're achieving? Casey said, good thing, need to provide update every 2 weeks. If not able to meet the deadline, then communicate the hurdle, I think you're trying to say there. Also used to communicate when things go according to the plan. Yeah, it's good to check in when things are tracking well too. That's a good point. Michael said, I had a boss who made it personal and not about trust. No matter what he felt, my work wouldn't measure up, and he had told me to my face. I was the only one he did this with. He used that to not give me my promotion or praise my work. You know, Michael, that's a really interesting point, because the reality is, in the workplace, everybody now, today, in the way that we operate and work around the world, everybody has the right to do their job well. And in terms of liability to the workplace, we have to demonstrate that we have given somebody every capacity to do their job well, which is where the performance management comes into play. So, Michael, that's a horrible, such a disempowering situation that you're in. I would say to you that constant criticism without the developmental feedback, which is, well, how can you do better? What's needed to be better? Just wrong, 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 is not empowering you to do your job well. So, if I want to sack somebody or not give them promotion, I have to demonstrate what skills they are not competent in, whether it's technical or behavioural, but also demonstrate that I'm giving you the opportunity to improve upon those skills, whether it's training, a buddying system, a skills matrix, whatever it is. If I'm going to sack you or not promote you, ideally I have evidence of why. What have I done? I've done everything I can. I've given you all the tools, all the strategies, and yet you still can't reach that benchmark. Otherwise, you're in situations of unfair dismissal, right? Great feedback from everyone. Micromanager is such an interesting one, and I think it's such a common one, and it's an easy trap for all of us to fall into. Especially when there's a lot of risk at stake, which is what Samara is talking about. You've got lots of liability, so it's hard not to sometimes. So I'm going to go through some really quick, I was going to say cheap and cheery, but they're not cheery. Some really quick traits, because you might say to me, well, they're not exactly a narcissist, and I don't know if they're a micromanager or a bully. So I'm just going to give you some really quick traits that and some names for these traits, the type of people that you might be dealing with, and some solutions. So if any of these resonate with you, write them down, okay? If you've got someone that you've come across or that you're currently dealing with, these are some strategies. All right, so we're going to go with the first one, the blame dodger. They like to dodge the blame. They will shift the fault to other people and not take responsibility. So the solution is make sure you have really clear records. Notice how I'm often talking about records, records, records. So keep clear records of your contributions and decisions to protect yourself. The controller, so it could be the micromanager. They are relentlessly monitoring work. They probably stopping your innovation and creativity. So, like I said with a micromanager, just keep them informed regularly and try and prevent that micromanagement. Be ahead of the game. The glory stealer. It's a bit narcissistic. They're going to claim other people's success. You want to just gently and quietly, in a public way, shine a light on how you contributed to that project, what part you played. Or say, thanks, I'm glad you liked the thing that I brought to the project. The intimidator, the person that likes to intimidate people, like the bully likes to use this tact. It's fear that they're really tapping into. So this is where you may not feel super confident, but you apply courage, which is doing something despite the fear, because they're using fear against you. So you want to be really firm, have clear boundaries. What do you need in order to feel safe at work? And that's where those boundaries are really important. And you want to escalate things if you need to, right? Really important. And I think what's important particularly with bullies, is that your requests of what you would like them to do are very, very clear. Because if it does get to a place where we're going to legal consequence or arbitration or formal grievances, you want to have evidence that you said, that you communicated to that person you did not wish them to do this thing, but they ignored that request. So clear boundary requests are really, really helpful. As a workplace mediator, let me tell you, that's really important. The favoritism, that means that they've got their little buddies and they're people that they like to focus on or lean on. So sometimes you're getting lost in the picture. You're not the squeaky wheel, so you need to be a little bit squeaky and demonstrate what you can bring to the team, any solutions or ideas or things that you would like to have a go at. Okay, I've got some more. The nitpicker. Constantly focusing on flaws without acknowledging strengths. Oh, I love working with these ones. They're very much below the line. So you want to encourage them to think above the line. Kazi, do
Uh,
you want to say something?
yeah, the last point, not this one.
Yeah.
Like favoritism. Like,
Yeah.
how are you gonna deal with that if somebody gives you a project but they take it without like acknowledging, giving it to the person they like, and you done your work, they give you, you work with them, and like there's very weird feelings, like you have done work, has been done, everything done, but now they are giving it to that work to somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. So you've provided evidence that you're more than capable, but they're still giving it to their friend or somebody
Yeah.
that they always give it to, even though you've demonstrated. This can be, people can get blindsided, Kazi. So this is really important where you find the language to be able to shine a light on the achievements. So it might be in a meeting where you're going, yeah, I was really proud of what I worked really hard on that, and it was a challenge, but I overcame that. It might be that you need to you're going under the radar. So you've got to, like I was saying, being the squeaky wheel. Cecilia said, work with an ally, discuss with HR. Yeah. And sometimes, Kazi, it's really important the assertiveness is making the request. I would like to work on that project. Or next time something like that comes up, I would like to throw my hat in the ring.
Scenario is like already assigned to you, you have done, uh, but you are planning to do it for someone else, but the person wants you to do it for everybody. You have done, you have uh, get their feedback, you incorporate everything, is in the final stage, everything in the ready to go, and now it's just
Being
taking
taken away
from
from you.
you to
Yeah.
give the other person to, yeah,
Mm.
to carry on the last bit of that task.
I'd be interested to see what Cecilia says around this one, Kazi. My advice to you is once again to communicate quite clearly how you're experiencing it from your point of view. And to be curious because it's quite hurtful. From your point of view, you could get angry or offended because of all the effort that you've put into it. So to be able to say, I'm curious, why is this, given the stability of this project or the wins that we've had, is there a reason that it's being handed over? I'd be curious, adopt a position of curiosity rather than how dare you, why are you doing this, and having that emotive response going, what was the thinking behind that? Cecilia, what are your thoughts on what Kazi's asking about?
I was about to say, you said it exactly. Coming with a curious tone and not from a defensive tone.
All right.
And
Thanks.
just having a list of questions. Tone is the key here. I'm really curious. Can you help me understand? Can you walk me through the process, the thinking process behind this?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
And also, Kazi, to say things like, if I was you, be saying things like, I would have liked to have followed through on this project to an end. What did you need from me in order to make that happen? Because I didn't get the opportunity. What was lacking? What could I do differently? Because remember, I said you have a right to do your job well and to get that feedback and information. And if you want to do that work and want to be entrusted to do that, you need that information in order to build on your capabilities. And any organization should want you to do that too, because this is about the succession planning and the survival of the work in the business and the organization. People don't stay there forever and things change. So you've got to grow and they've got to support you to do that.
Yeah.
So you want to utilize that. Great question. I hope that's helpful.
And just one more tidbit. This is from a personal experience coaching somebody, is do not have side talks with other people. Talk directly to the source.
Okay.
Yes,
because
when
you talk sideways, it creates the rumor mill and it creates more misunderstandings. It's always good to go directly to the source.
All right.
And you risk moving into passive aggressive because you can have a go at your boss and complain and moan and converge into gossip and distrust, which is you resorting, and we all do it, is passive aggressive behavior. I want to have a go at that person, but I don't have the confidence or the courage to do it. So I'm just going to go over here and complain to this person, which is defined as passive aggressive behavior. You need to just assert yourself with the language tools.
But it also like that someone maybe new recently come, don't know whom to go with, but also, yeah, it's really hard to, I mean, in that circumstances to think what could be the possible best way to go, because the person is new working with you and the relationship has not built up strong enough yet. But also, if you are your personality is someone like you don't um, talk much outside work, you don't go chit chat, uh, but the favorite person, if they go and do chit chat, it's obvious, it's human psychology understand, but it's affect the other person who are not that much like talkative, like to go and talk, other than if there is really something to talk related to work.
I understand. You're wanting to build rapport and build that trust, yet you don't know what to have conversations about.
Yeah.
And that is I think the easiest thing is to be curious. Kazi, the things that people love talking about the most is themselves and their work, right?
Yeah.
So be curious about the work. How's it going? How long you been doing this job without without interrogating, but just a couple of questions of curiosity and interest can help you build rapport and learn about their work and their style.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
They're great, great questions. Let's have a look at some more. Like I was going to saying with the nitpicker, and often the nitpicker is looking at all the problems. So we want to reframe, we want to be curious, we want to ask questions and get some balanced feedback from them. So sometimes, look, I can remember working with somebody who constantly picked all the flaws in what I was doing all the time. They constantly, all the time, were telling me how I was getting things wrong and where I was doing things wrong. And at one point, I did say to them, I'd really appreciate if you can let me know when I get something right. I appreciate you telling me everything I'm doing wrong. I'd also really appreciate when I'm getting things right. So I was basically saying to them, let me know when I get it right, won't you? Because all you're telling me is everything I'm getting wrong. And sometimes again, it's just people, it's not on their radar. They're just zeroed in on telling you everything that's wrong. So again, Kazi, this could be one for you. Align your contributions to their objectives. So what can you do to help those that are just focused on themselves all the time? They may not be thinking about what you want and what you need and what your goals are. So demonstrate how your contributions align to what they actually want as well. And how you want the same thing. We're on the same journey here. The unpredictable one. Oh, so we want to confirm, like we've talked about already. Clarify, confirm, very, very clear timelines, boundaries, excuse me, quality of work. Disconnected. Sometimes when you're working with people that are disconnected from what you're doing, if it's a disconnected leader, for example, demonstrate what the dynamics of the team, shine a light. I just keep thinking about a torch. You've got to focus in, or a spotlight. You've got to focus in on the successes, the challenges, helping them to re-engage a bit more is the ultimate. And it's just shifting focus really, or reframing things. Excuse me. An unprincipled leader, if you're dealing with somebody who is unprincipled, that means that they are tolerating things that are not ethical. And this can be risky and dangerous. So you want to be clear about what you perceive as risk. This is when we talk about psychological safety in the workplace. Perhaps it's the things that you value. And it's important that you document concerns because there might be a request in that later on that you need to fall back on. So, for example, if someone is calling you a term you find offensive, or perhaps somebody's swearing a bit too much in the workplace and it makes you feel uncomfortable, you've got to be very clear about your request. Yeah, so you want to maintain your standards and your values in that situation. So there's a few little nuances. There's probably about 10 of those in there of just little nuances that you might be able to focus in on if you're having some of those challenges. Hopefully that's going to be helpful for you. I just want to focus on very quickly and touch upon something that is so obvious that we just dismiss it. Typically in the workplace, or in our daily life, we have something that triggers us. There's something that presses a button for us. And we normally have an automated response, a habit of how we respond to something. And it's what you would say is an unconscious reaction. We're reacting out of formulated responses. That's as a human species, that's what we do. So part of emotional intelligence is being aware and mindful, aware of what that trigger is, knowing that we want to have an automatic response. However, we're going to pause and reflect. so that we then have a more conscious and controlled response. So this whole model here is very much founded on emotional intelligence. And I want to give you some tools and strategies just before we finish up, go through some quickly that you can remember in the moment, because that's the hardest thing, right? Is to remember these things in the moment when you're dealing with these really difficult people. You just want to have that automated response and punch them back. So the things that Cecilia mentioned this before is that you want to be prepared. Think about the questions you want to ask. I encourage people to write down a whole menu of questions, because if you try and rely on your brain to remember them in the moment, it's exhausting. So preparing yourself is really, really useful. Part of that preparation is making sure the conversation isn't rushed. Booking in a time with someone to speak, making sure that you are not going to be interrupted. You're not going to be, they're not going to be. Put the phone away. Don't look at the the smart watch or any of those things that are going to undermine the trust that you're trying to build with that person. It's important that you have as much information, and that might be the questions that you want to ask. What is it that you don't know that you don't know? So being curious rather than being frustrated, annoyed, offended, irritated, they're all very emotive responses. There's a story you don't know if you're feeling that. It's very likely. So you want to gather as much information as you can. It may also be around policies, procedures, mistakes that have happened. What's the information that's going to inform the questions you're going to ask? I would always recommend, if you can, the points of conversation that you want to talk about. What are some of the key points? And so when I say an agenda, that might just be a couple of bullet points in an email. So it allows the person you're going to talk to also prepare to come into the conversation. There's nothing worse than a colleague saying, we need to talk, right? Like, oh, what have I done? The other thing I will say to you, this is what I spend a lot of time with participants going into mediation, is getting very clear on what it is that you want. What is it that you don't want? What will you tolerate? What won't you tolerate? Where has someone crossed the boundary line? What are you willing to negotiate on? What won't you negotiate on? If you've got to be very clear on those, rather than just going in to tell people what you think, to make them apologize, to draw blood, to seek revenge. What is it that you actually want in order to do your job well, or to feel safe within the workplace? The other thing, which is hard sometimes, and this is our job as a mediator, is to go, what could be their perspective? What's their position? Why could they have done those things? What part did you play in that? I can get really frustrated with my team that I work with sometimes. And then once I've got through that frustration, is to go, well, what part did I play in that? Did I not have check-in points? Did I not communicate things clearly? Did I do something incorrectly? And like Cecilia said, list the questions that you want to ask. So you can write those down, but that will be in the cheat sheet that I'll email you as well. But this is a really good checklist for a useful, productive conversation that you might be having and that you're probably trying to avoid, going into those difficult conversations with difficult people. You want to be able to protect your energy as well. So making sure that you've got a clear head, got a clear space to work in. This is one of the things that one of my favorite tools that my mentor, Dr. John Hinwood, shared with me. It's so popular and so easy, and it's backed by science because it's utilizing what we call an amygdala hijack. which we talk about in our stress management masterclasses. But this one is basically tricking that flight or fright response in your brain by using the prefrontal cortex, the very smart part of your brain. You're basically, words can really hurt and they can trigger us and we become reactionary. We need a little bit of breaking space, a little wiggle room, a bit of space to be able to go, okay, let's just attach and assess the situation. And this one's so incredibly powerful. You imagine that these words that are firing off at you like spears are hitting a cylinder of protection around you. You're going, go on, fire your words. It's not going to hurt me. It's not going to touch me. Your verbal punch is not going to hit me. I have a magical shield around me. And I know at a conscious level that sounds crazy, but for your amygdala that is very primal and reactive, it does not know the difference between a real or perceived threat. And it tricks that part of your brain to go, you're safe. And it is just for a moment, it is just for a breath, but it could be the world of difference that gives you the opportunity to pause, reflect, and then apply some of these things that I'm suggesting to you. So one of the things that you might want to do with the negative, the nitpicker, maybe even the narcissist or the bully is to reframe the way that things are being communicated. This is a very powerful tool that we utilize in mediations. We want to support people to reframe the situation and think about it from a different way. So shifting that language. So you want to interpret what it is that they're saying. What's the underlying message there? Take out the sting and the emotion and try, if possible, to put a positive focus on it. So I'm going to give you an example. Someone comes to you and go, Bob is an absolute idiot. I hate working with him. He drives me up the wall. So if I was a leader, I would say, sounds like what you're telling me is that you're having some difficulties working with Bob. Have I got that right? What you're communicating to me here is that you're having some challenges working with Bob. Tell me more about that. So you can see the difference. I'm interpreting all of that emotive language and going, what are they really trying to tell me here? So and again, you want to do that with yourself. You can go, oh, I'm such an idiot. I'm so stupid. Mistakes are such an important part of leadership growth and development. Once you get over that trauma of stuffing up, biggest question and reframe is, what is the beautiful lesson that I've got in this? What can I take away from this? That is also what you can do with your team. In our business, we have a policy. When somebody makes a really big mistake, we ask 3 questions. How did it happen? What will I do differently next time to make sure it doesn't happen? And most importantly, what is the biggest lesson that the company gains from this? What have we learned about this? For those that have been around for a while, you might have got a couple of months ago, got an email that wasn't intended for you. We accidentally sent out an email that went to the entire database, my entire database. And it was a salesy kind of email. We all learned from that experience, all of us. Yeah, Cecilia's got it there, those 3 questions. Okay, if you've got some really difficult, when people are bringing up excuses for why they can't do things or they've got an objection, this is a great one for complaints. This is used in the sales. I learned this when I did sales training, and the reason this is popular is it's an alliteration. Feel, felt, found. You remember that approach in terms of how you respond to somebody. We've got to be careful that we don't say, I understand how you're feeling, but we want to communicate that we are hearing the feelings that they're communicating. Sounds like you're frustrated. Sounds like this is irritating or annoying for you. And then the felt is either I've felt like that in that situation too, or it could be we've had clients that have felt irritated by this as well. It's slow, it's laborious, it feels pointless. And they're going, yeah, that's right. And this is where you can drop in the found. What other clients have found really useful is to be able to fill out the form online and then they can email it off quicker, or whatever it is. What's a little tip or trick or balm to ease their pain that you can offer based on your understanding and your empathy of their situation? So it's just a little formula that you can apply, but you be careful in terms of where you use it, how you use it. One of my favorite ones in mediation and in conflicts, or where there's a really angry person and disgruntled person, is what's going to make this right? How can I correct this for you? What would you like to see happen? That kind of questioning is really, really powerful, especially if it's a customer, because if they are complaining quite often, or it's a staff member, it's that they want to be heard. They want to be heard and understood. So simply asking that question is that I want my feelings to be acknowledged. Quite often, that's how they respond to that question. So they've got to a point of frustration when nothing is happening, and so that can be a really good question to ask. So these are little tips and tricks. If you want to, this one is my favorite. It's the easiest one to remember. If you want to start a difficult conversation, you don't know how to start, just remember me saying this to you. You know how. You know how is an easy way to start a difficult conversation. One, you're asking a question. You're making sure that you're aligned with the information that you're about to share. You know how in the meeting yesterday you called me an old grey-haired woman? And the other person could say, no, I don't remember that. Oh, okay. Well, that's what I heard. And you did actually say that. You may not be aware. It just helps you frame an understanding, the other person's understanding of the situation, and position on the table what it is that you want to talk about. And if you just start with you know how, the rest will fall off your tongue. Trust me. It's a great way to start. This was one from Dr. John. Absolutely loved. Thanks for sharing. So if somebody is having a go at you and telling you of what you should and shouldn't do and should have done and shouldn't have done, you can either defend yourself and get into an argument, or you can you can over defend yourself. Oh, but I did it because of this, or da da da. Or you become passive and going, oh, you're right. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm such an idiot. Sorry. Whereas thanks for sharing, and it doesn't have to literally be that. It can be things like thanks for your thoughts. Thanks for your ideas on that. It is just neutralizing and stopping that flow of criticism. I'm hearing you, but that's as far as it's going. I'm not engaging in a defense or a retreat. I'm just acknowledging what you've said. So that can be, it's so powerful, like that one. It's so simple. This is also another really powerful, powerful, powerful tool. When you want to, this creates psychological safety. When you want to object to somebody's idea or defend your situation, the default is, yes, but the reason I did that was because, yes, but we can't do that because of that. That's a typical response. I want you to start to listen for how often you say but in your communication, and see if you can apply an and in there, because an and in the conversation is not resistance but alignment. I'm agreeing with you, and now I'm going to reframe or reposition that perspective. I'm on your side. I'm now offering another perspective. Whereas yes, but is I'm hearing you, but now I'm putting up an objection. It's just a subtle shift in the positioning and language that can have a huge impact and creates a psychological safe space. I'm acknowledging what you're saying. I'm now offering a different perspective on that. Makes the world of difference. So these are just some of the simple language tools. This is very surface level. We want you to be able to apply this. I'm going to share these tools and strategies with you that I've given to you today in a cheat sheet. You will also get another email with more worksheets and resources and study. Please share them. The whole point of us doing this is, one, for you to be able to apply the knowledge, see the value and the quality of the education, training, coaching that Cecilia and I provide, and to tell somebody about it. We need you to tell people about this and share these resources. We want to build our reputation for providing you with quality professional development. So use them. Use these tools and give us the feedback. We're going to do another masterclass. This time, Cecilia is going to be delivering this one. So if you haven't registered for this one yet, do so. And Cecilia, you're going to take people through the free Luminous Spark assessment for this one. Is that right? Yeah, that is so fun. That is so fun.
So if you want to learn a little bit about how your personality responds differently to stress, you can go to the link we'll send to you and just get your free personality profile.
And this is kind of taking it to the next level, because what Luminous Spark does, it's so interesting. It gives you the strategies for you personally to be able to deal with these difficult people or these difficult situations and see what your defaults are. Now, are we going to do the wheel? So what we're going to do, what we'd like to do, Mark knows about this. Mark, have you got your book yet? Has anything arrived? Oh, he's got it. Which one is it? Is it Getting Things Done? Can't see. You have to take yourself off mute. Take yourself off mute, Mark. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, arrived last night and I've read the first chapter and I'm doing what Daniel Pink advises and making sure that you destroy the book by making notes and annotations and underlining and stuff like that.
Good.
Anyway.
So
I love that.
Thank
I
you.
love that video from Daniel Pink about reading
Right.
books. Yes.
Yes. Okay, so what Cecilia and I like to do is a show of appreciation for you staying till the very end. We like to do, I'm going to stop sharing so I can let Cecilia share. What we like to do is give away a book that we recommend that further enhances the knowledge that we're sharing with you. So the book, and it's always interesting to see, I think, what books Cecilia and I come up with. Sorry, I'm going to give sharing. You've got opportunity now to share, but this is the book.
Thank you.
This is a book I'm going to share with you. I think it's relevant to the topic. You may or may not have seen this in airports. It's called Surrounded by Idiots. So it is based on disc profiling, probably not dissimilar to Luminous Spark, but whoever wins the chocolate wheel that Cecilia is going to roll now will get a sent copy of this book. Over to you, Cecilia.
Can everyone see the wheel?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. Let's spin it.
Oh, Michael!
Oh, congratulations, Michael. So close, Samara.
You can actually. I've actually read that book. It's a great book.
Oh, have you,
pass it on.
Michael? Do you want us to spin the wheel again?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Ah, thanks,
Oh,
Great
Michael.
book, though. It's a great book. I recommend it to everybody.
Cool.
Really? Okay, Michael, we'll sort you out. We'll think of something to send over to you. So you're okay for me to spin it again?
Yes, please.
All right.
Okay. Very generous of you. So
Yes.
let's go. Okay.
Do you have to take Michael's name out? Can you do that?
It's okay. If we get Michael again, he's meant to receive something today.
Oh. I think maybe we get you a lottery ticket. Oh my goodness.
This is
Okay.
Michael.
I
Okay,
think
one more time, then I will take your name off.
Oh, Samara, she was so close before.
Congratulations.
So Samara,
Congratulations, Samara. It was meant to be.
So Samara, I just need for you to provide us with your postal address. Did she still there? Yeah, she's still there. So Samara, if you can just provide us with your postal address and then I'll order it through Amazon and get it sent to you, okay?
Thank you. Thanks, Michael.
That's lovely. Very, very generous.
Great book. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a fun book. It's an interesting book.
Great session, Barb. Thank you so much. Really learned a lot today.
I'm just going to finish off one last slide, just one last thing as well, that like I said, if you can forward any information and resources that we're sharing with you, feedback is also really helpful. So in the email that gets sent out, there's an opportunity to complete a feedback form if you want to. What did you like? What didn't you like? What do you want more of? Or if you want to do, obviously the public testimonial really helps. So this is a QR code or this link to be able to do a Google review. If we're connected on LinkedIn, you can connect with either Cecilia or myself and do a recommendation. We'd be so appreciative. That's all we want from these experiences. But I am here to answer any questions you also may have around any of the material that we covered. I've gone a bit over time, all those wheel respins. You can also ask it of Cecilia as well if you have any questions. Am I missing anything in the chat?
No, thank you for joining. Thank you for being here today.
Alrighty. Kay, you've taken your, did you want to say something? You got your mic open? No?
No, just thank you for today.
No problem.